What's going on, guys? It's me, Jay. Sorry about the disconnection last time. Technical difficulties. But anyway, this is our WWE talk. This is something we're going to do each and every week. At the end of the week, we're going to just have a free discussion, a free talk. Anybody that wants to hop on can, just to talk all things professional wrestling. Particularly, I'll be more knowledgeable, honestly, guys, when it comes to WWE because that's one of the best promotion I mainly follow. I don't really follow AEW, but I know a little bit about AEW. I keep up with it. I don't watch it week to week. I can't say I watch Rampage or Dynamite. I think that's the only two shows they have, right? Rampage and Dynamite. They don't do AEW Dark anymore on YouTube, I don't think. But anyway, this is going to be about R Truth, Ronda Truth killings. As you guys know, Lisa and I did the video when R Truth first got fired. We suggested that R Truth's firing was a DI. Like ever since Trump has gotten in the beginning in January, in various companies, he's been removing minorities from positions of power. And we felt that he probably had some kind of influence over WWE and TKO, given how close he is to Triple H, how close he is to Nick Khan, Ari Emanuel, and the higher ups of both WWE and TKO. So, and a lot of people were demanding justice for R Truth because his firing just came out of nowhere. He had just done a main event program with John Cena on Saturday Night's Main Event, a one-on-one match that was pretty good. It was probably the highlight of the show, better than that cage match between Drew McIntyre and Priest, which they were trying to make the highlight of the show. John Cena and R Truth was a good part of an angle, right? Fans were getting behind him, and fans have always kind of been behind him in the grassroots ever since he came back to WWE in the late 90s, 2008. But this firing came out of nowhere. So fans just took to the internet. They took to Facebook. They took to Twitter. They took to all forms of social media protesting Truth. Not just the fans, but the industry, industry people as well. People within the WWE, people within TKO, performers, wrestlers, people within the industry, even former employees of WWE, former employees of TNA, people that have worked with R Truth over the years. They thought it was unjust, and WWE acted. In an Elimination Chamber, a hooded figure came out and attacked John Cena, helping the baby faces of Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes win. And it was R Truth. And then the next night on Raw, he goes in a rant. He starts saying, I'm the truth, I'm the truth. And he cuts off all his hair. And now he is Ron the Truth Killings, no longer R Truth, no longer the comic relief character that we've come to know since at least 2011. He is now back to his old persona, the persona that he adopted while he was in TNA in 2001, 2002. From 2002 to 2003 in TNA, which allowed him to become the first black NWA champion in history by defeating Ken Shamrock back then in the early days of TNA. And I think this is brilliant, given that WWE is in a working relationship with TNA. They're sharing a lot with TNA. It's possible that the two companies will produce maybe a compilation DVD and show a lot more of Truth's other side when he was in TNA on WWE programming, because they've been collaborating for years now, the two companies. So this is where he's headed now, as far as his heel character. Well, not a heel really, but like a more serious character. And a lot of fans are pushing for a grassroots movement, just like it was for Cody Rhodes, the We Want Cody movement, and just like it was for Daniel Bryan, and just like it was for Kofi Kingston, a grassroots movement to have R Truth be the one to dethrone John Cena, because they're still going with this storyline that John Cena will ruin wrestling by walking away with the WWE Championship at the end of his time. At the end of this year, right? When all his dates are up. most people will say, oh, well, Cody's just going to beat him, right? But this will add a little bit more spice to it because now you have a lot of contenders. You don't just have Cody. You have Seth Rollins, who is now the Money in the Bank winner. As a reason, I was totally off with the Money in the Bank win. I said it was going to be Solo Sikoa. It wasn't. It was Seth Rollins. He won for the men's division. So he has the Money in the Bank briefcase. And on Raw, he comes out. There's a confrontation between John Cena and CM Punk. The match is set on. That's another thing on Raw. The match is set with CM Punk versus John Cena at the coming Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia. Now, a lot of people are criticizing CM Punk because while CM Punk was with AEW, he criticized The Miz. He said that The Miz is going to take blood money and suck bloody dick. Well, I guess Phil Brooks is a sellout too because he will take on his longtime rival, John Cena, at Night of Champions. Obviously, these John Cena matches are weird because it's like, obviously, guys, we know that John Cena can't lose until the end, so none of these guys are going to win. You know what I mean? Like, all his challengers, R Truth, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, whomever, these guys can't win because the storyline has to be that somebody defeats Cena on his way out. Now, having Seth Rollins go against him is kind of weird because they're both heels. But maybe this could be a way to turn. That's John Cena babyface. I'm pretty sure John Cena, he wants to go out as a babyface. He wants to be remembered as a babyface. He spent most of his career as a babyface, so I'm pretty sure he wants to leave WWE as a babyface. Like when we talk about John Cena's time in the, hey Lisa, what's going on? When we talk about John Cena's time in WWE, we talk about him as a babyface, not as a heel. So I'm pretty sure he wants to go back out on top as a face. So having him get into something with Seth Rollins would be interesting. But I'm pushing for R Truth. I'm pushing to take this R Truth movement to its zenith. Not just getting him reinstated as a wrestler, but pushing for him to be the WWE champion as the year closes, as we go from 2025 into 2026. Because he's the true heroine of this story. If you think about it, this John Cena heel turn would be totally lame if it were not for R Truth. R Truth is the guy that fans want to see. Just like years ago they wanted to with Daniel Bryan, just like they wanted to when Cody Rhodes, when The Rock came back, it looked like he was taking Cody Rhodes' spot. We all got on here, hashtag we want Cody, right? Remember that movement? Hashtag give Divas a chance in 2015 when the Divas had like a 3-minute match on Raw and everybody was like, what the hell? And Stephanie McMahon gives us was bigging up Patricia Arquette for her speech of women representation in the Golden Globes, and then AJ Lee tweeted, "Well, you pay your female wrestlers less than your male wrestlers," and the internet exploded, and we want give divas a hashtag give divas a chance. And what did WWE say at that time? We hear you and we're listening to you. Well, this was another example where the fans got mobilized and the fans did their thing and WWE caved. Everybody said, "Oh, it was just a storyline. He was never really fired." No, he was really fired, right? But what happened was WWE saw how many people got on the internet, many people made videos, and many people, us included, contributed to the force that got Ron Killings rehired. So let's continue to do that, and let's continue to push for him to become WWE champion by the end of this year. Give him a little run, couple months, and then you want to put it on Rollins to get the storyline with Rollins as the leader of the Dangerous Alliance, continue that going. You're going to have to do that. But just give R Truth at least that going out, because he's the true star of this storyline. Another guy that some fans are upset about that he lost his championship was Jey Uso. Jey Uso is the ultimate underdog of 2025, shocking the world, winning the Royal Rumble this year, and then going on to defeat Gunther at WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship. And he held it from WrestleMania, which was in April, to now, so that's not even 2 months, right? Not even 2 whole months, and he already dropped the belt to Gunther on Raw, just like that on Raw, just a Raw match, dropping the belt to Gunther. So now Gunther is once again the World Heavyweight Champion of WWE. Now we don't know where this is headed, but I suspect that we may be seeing Bill Goldberg return to wrestling, because Goldberg wants his retirement match, and WWE is high on him having his retirement match in Saudi Arabia against Gunther. They're still hyping this up from bad blood of last year when Gunther and Goldberg crossed paths. So Goldberg versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship is in the works. I don't know if this will result in Bill Goldberg winning the World Heavyweight Championship from Gunther. Hopefully not, because the last time Goldberg came out of retirement and won the WWE Championship, a WWE title, not the WWE Championship, but the Universal Championship, was in 2020 by defeating The Fiend. And at that time, The Fiend was a heel in Ascendancy and was highly popular with the fans, and people wanted to see him take on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, but WWE had in mind Roman Reigns versus Goldberg for WrestleMania 36, which ultimately didn't happen because of COVID, right? But that's what they wanted. It happened 2 years later in Saudi Arabia when Goldberg came out of retirement again and Reigns beat him, right? But when Bill Goldberg won the title that night, I said it was historic because Goldberg, a Jewish guy, won it in one of the most anti-Jewish nations in the world, and it was historic for that reason. But another reason why it was historic was because it derailed The Fiend. You know, yes, The Fiend was. I would agree, Nick. The Fiend was phenomenal. Yes, he was. Bray Wyatt was something special. Bray Wyatt was really something special, and his death in 2023, crushed me. That's one of those wrestling deaths that I'll never forget. It was August. It was right around. People were still mourning him when I went out to have my birthday dinner that year, and it caught me by surprise because it was a double punch in a way, Nick, because we lost Terry Funk and we lost Bray/Wyndham Rotunda at the same time, and he was really going places. I just feel like WWE underutilized him all the time, since the time of the Wyatt family. But really, he should have been the one to end Undertaker's streak. Right, you mourned him, the only celebrity you ever mourned. I think I don't know how old you are, Nick, but for your generation, thank you, Nick. For your generation, um, I'm assuming you're probably a Gen Zer or you're, probably an older Gen Alpha. I'm not sure, but for this generation, Bray Wyatt's death was akin to by generation with Eddie Guerrero or Owen Hart or uh, even not so much Benoit, like but more like Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero, you know, uh, because here you had a guy right in. Okay, yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah, I'll definitely sub to you, bro. Definitely, yeah, man. He was he was a tremendous talent. You know, I feel like they never knew what to do with him. You know, oh, 38. Okay, then you're around my you're around my age then. So, but yeah, Owen was terrible. Eddie Guerrero terrible also. But the one that reminded me of the most was probably Brian Pillman, just because like Wyndham Bray Wyatt was figured in heavily in the storylines at the time of his passing because he had just come back. They were going to do the Uncle Howdy thing with him and his brother. He was going to really do something special, just kind of like Brian Pillman. You know what I mean? Yep. Like you got the sense of somebody like when it came to like Eddie Guerrero, Benoit, Owen, those guys kind of they had their moment in the sun. They achieved their success. For Eddie Guerrero, 2005. Thank you, bro. Maybe I will. 2005 was his year. Um, 2004, 2005, when he won the title from Lesnar in '04, and then when and later on when him and Ray the following year went on to have their classics, he was already at the pinnacle, right? He was already world champion. With Owen, he was never world champion, but '94 was his year, and that's another great comparison. Pillman, like Bray Wyatt, uh, they had they were creative minds, right? They took control of their own character and they blurred the lines between fantasy and reality a lot. Well, not really with Bray Wyatt, but kind of. You know, you know what I mean. But it's just that um, it just so happened that Pillman came into WWE at a time when WWE was searching for an identity. In 1996 was a pivotal change year for WWE. They were going out of the new generation era, which was really cartoony, really silly. You had characters like Doink the Clown, characters like Isaac Yankem DDS, characters like Mantar, uh, you know, cartoony era stuff going into more serious stuff. So they were willing to give anything a try. So they gave the loose cannon character a try. They ran with it, which was something he established way back when he was in WCW, uh, the loose cannon character, to make himself stand out. You know, when Bray Wyatt, when he came up with the Fiend, and before that the Bray Wyatt character, WWE already had writers. They already had people that thought they knew the characters and the gimmicks better than the people performing them. You know, and that of course hurts them because very rarely has WWE ever created a character and that character been successful. Usually the wrestler, the performer will create the gimmick themselves and then be and then be able to carry it his or herself. You know, like with R Truth, you know, um, WWE wanted him to be a gimmick, a comedy gimmick, and he created the Ron the Truth Killings gimmick in TNA himself. You know, so usually when WWE gives you a gimmick and say, "Hey, perform this gimmick," usually it fails. When you're able to create it yourself and put a little bit of yourself into it, that's when it's most successful and most iconic. Look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's another example. Stone Cold Steve Austin comes into the WWE in 1995 as the ringmaster. Vince, this is Vince's vision, the ringmaster. It sucks, right? And then he becomes Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he's able to become the biggest draw in the industry's history. The only the only example where WWE came up with the gimmick and it was successful and it was huge was The Undertaker. Because The Undertaker took it on and he embodied it and he made it uh, a success. Even though he didn't come up with it, he made it a success because it was heavily kayfabe. That's what I thought they were going to do with The Fiend. I thought they were going to take the energy that they had with Kane in 97, 98, the energy that they had with Undertaker in 1990, 1991, and the energy with Mankind in 96 / early part of 97 and combine that. You know what I mean? But they never really got their footing with him. They said he wasn't a great in-ring worker, but his gimmick didn't really, he didn't need to put on 5-star classics. You know what I mean? He didn't need to go out there and be Dean Malenko. You know, you know what I mean? Like nobody would want that from him. You know, he had his own unique style, and if workers can learn how to work around his own unique style. You know, the good ones that have good matches with him. Cena was great with him. Cena and Bray Wyatt had tremendous chemistry. You know, it's just like Undertaker. Undertaker in the beginning, he didn't have great matches either. Undertaker's run from 1990 to about 1997 was just filled with shitty matches with the likes of the Giant Gonzalez, Mabel, King Kong Bundy, Kama, the whole $1 million team in 1995. Primetime Brian Lee is the Underfaker. He didn't have good matches in the beginning. Taker didn't start having good matches until like I said, he won the WWE Championship for the second time after WrestleMania 13. Then he had, decent matches, especially with Shawn Michaels that year and later in '98 with Kane. But in the beginning, Taker matches were just like Bray Wyatt's matches because the gimmick they had. People didn't go to them. People don't go to characters like Kane and characters like The Fiend and characters like Undertaker for 5-star classics. You know, they go to the more technical type wrestlers like Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit, Bret Hart. You know what I mean? For 5-star classics. You know, and they gimmick the Fiend up too much. The idea of having the red light in the ring as he wrestled, that kind of wore thin with a lot of people. And kind of made his matches look extra hokey. They could have did a lot more with them, but they just jobbed him out. You know what I mean? They didn't know what they had with him. You know, and even his brother, Bo Dallas, is pretty good too. They're better than their father, that's for sure. Because Mike Rotundo slash IRS, he was a good character wrestler when he was IRS, but anything outside of that, like the stuff he did in WCW and the stuff he did, before he was IRS with the U.S. Express in the 80s, a totally vanilla character. As far as Jey Uso, my opinion on Jey Uso, I feel like this is not the end for Uso Maniacs. You know what I mean? His fan base. he will get another chance with it. Most guys, when they get their first WWE title run or title run with the World Heavyweight Championship, they don't do that well, honestly. Um, you take a look. Here's a perfect example: Bret Hart's first run in 1992. Bret Hart, they were coming off the steroid. They were right in the midst of the steroid allegations in 1992. They wanted to get away from the big muscle-bound wrestlers into the smaller wrestlers. So they had choices. Tito Santana was still on the roster. Bret Hart was there, and they chose Bret Hart, and he beat Ric Flair at a house show. And all of a sudden, at SummerSlam 1992, you had Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage in the main of the world title match. And now the next pay-per-view, you're being forced to accept Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, two guys who fans had perceived as mid-card wrestlers, right? Smaller guys, intercontinental level, as it were. And Bret's first run was nothing to write home about. Much like Jey Uso's run, you had a lot of other things that were overshadowing it, like Hulk Hogan's return, right? He was off for a year and he came back, and his return overshadowed the title reign of Bret Hart, even ending in one of the most screwiest finishes ever at WrestleMania 9 in regards to Bret. But he had another chance, you know what I mean? And in 94, when they gave him it and Hogan was no longer around, he'd already been in talks with WCW by that point. Bret was given the torch and he was able to run with it. Unfortunately, I feel like they never really went with Bret because they always tried to build up other people, whether it be Diesel, whether it be Lex Luger, whether it be Shawn Michaels. And, Vince never really had total faith in Bret, but he did have a better run in 94 than when he had in his first run. Another example, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho left WCW, came into WWE in 1999. We thought he was going to be put right away with main event programs. He did his first promo with The Rock, so we're like, oh, he had a huge amount of fanfare in WCW. They didn't know what to do with him. Goldberg, he kept calling out Goldberg in feuds. Goldberg didn't want to work with him. So he comes to WWE, and then he kind of flounders in the mid-card for years. Gives Ken Shamrock his last match in WWE. And then, by 2002, he defeats Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hey, what's going on, Matt? He defeats Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock in one night to become WCW champion and WWE champion, the first undisputed champion probably since the WWE left the NWA in 1963. But anyway, but that run in 2002, that run was overshadowed by the return of the NWO. Triple H's return, Shawn Michaels' return. So much was going on at the time in 2002 when Jericho was champion, especially Triple H's return, that it was an uneventful turn. But Jericho had other chances. Jericho, by 2008, his second comeback, he was an established main eventer, and he was ensconced in the main event scene by 2012. So I wouldn't worry so much about Jey Uso. And another example, a third example of this is CM Punk. CM Punk, his first win, he wins Money in the Bank in 2008 at WrestleMania 24. Goes on to become World Heavyweight Champion by defeating Edge, but it's a lackluster run, and it ends in a screwy way. But by the time he comes back next year, he's already a main eventer, and he has his second chance. So like these other guys, he's able to do it. Jey Uso could do the same thing, right? It could happen that way. It could not. There have been times in WWE where you've watched and a guy's been on top 1 year and he's had a hell of a year, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to be the guy, right, that they're going to run with next year at WrestleMania. And then by the following year, he's totally irrelevant. The most classic example of this will probably be Lex Luger. Look at where Lex Luger was in the summer of 1993 and where he was 2 years later on the card at WrestleMania 11 in the opener. So sometimes the guy has tremendous amount of momentum and goes nowhere. Other times, they give him other chances. But I think Jey Uso will get another chance with the WWE Championship or the World Heavyweight Championship, one of them. And he will be a star. He has that star-making ability. He just has to work. He has to work at it. Work at it. He seems like he's a really good underneath baby face. You know what I mean? A baby face that does better in the chase. There are some baby faces like that. Sting was a perfect example of that. Now, granted, Sting was in WCW / the NWA, so and that was a heel territory. In the NWA territories, most of the time you had a heel champion and you would have the babyface chase. You had your heel champions, your Harley Races in the 70s, your Ric Flair in the 80s, your Hollywood Hogans in the 90s, right? These heel wrestlers that would hold on to the belt forever, and the babyface would chase. And because Sting was the franchise of WCW, he was often that babyface that was chasing. And when he got the championships, when he did win the championships, like when he won it from Flair in 90, or when he won it from Luger in 92, or when he won it from Hogan in 97, well, really 98, undisputedly, but let's just say 97, because he technically did win at Starrcade in 97. But when he won it from these people, when he became champion, it seemed like, okay, well, where do we go from here? And his title reigns were always boring. Sting was one of those guys that he always had to be chasing. Dusty Rhodes was very similar. Dusty Rhodes always wanted to be chasing the championship because the times he had it, whether he defeated Ric Flair or Terry Funk or whomever, he never really was a great champion. There are guys that are great with the title. Hogan was one of them. Bob Backlund was one of them. Bruno Sammartino. But then there are guys that are better chasing. Maybe Jey Uso is that kind of champion, always chasing. And you give the people a taste of what it's like with him as champion, but he's never a champion for all that long. You know what I mean? Cody seems like he's like his dad in that way. If they're going to continue to have Cody Rhodes as a babyface, he needs to be chasing the title and not having the title, because his year-long run at the end of WrestleMania 40 to WrestleMania 41 was abysmal. Like, he was having good matches. Him and AJ Styles had that classic in the French Backlash, right? And he was having killer matches, especially, like I said, him and AJ Styles, tremendous chemistry. But at the same time, when he wasn't wrestling great workers like the likes of AJ, he was down the card, uneventful title defenses against the likes of Solo Sikoa, for example. And his promos every week from week to week were boring. Cody is better at chasing, I say, like he is now. The fans are back into him again. Why? Because he's chasing. He's no longer the champion. Vince McMahon. Here's another thing. Vince McMahon, there is a speculation. We talked about Vince McMahon starting his own company called 41 and I. Now, 14 and I. Sorry, 14 and I. Now, I didn't know what 14 and I meant, but I did some investigation and some digging, and I found out that it is the address, the exact street address, of Vince McMahon's, the company that Vince McMahon's grandfather founded, the original Capital Wrestling Corporation, co-founded with his son, with Jess McMahon, his grandfather, with his father, Vince Sr., which would become Capital Wrestling Corporation in 1946. So basically, the ancestor of the WWE. So they say that he's going to. Jonathan Coachman says He's going to use this company with Saudi backing, with the backing of the Saudis, to eventually buy back WWE from TKO. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, I mean, that might be just wishful thinking on WWE fans' part, but you can never count Vince out. You know what I mean? He's seeing what's coming to his company, and people seeing what happened at WrestleMania 41, the backlash against it, and the backlash against Triple H and TKO and Nick Khan. So it may just be that Vince McMahon, you know, does buy Vince McMahon and 14th and I eventually buy back the WWE, separating the WWE part of TKO from the UFC part of TKO. But we don't know. We don't know. You know, it's all in the air. It's all speculation. People say that TKO is broke, yet TKO, Dana White and Nick Khan are venturing out with some Saudi backers of their own. I think either Saudi or Qatari backers, some country in the Middle East. I think most likely Saudi, to start a boxing promotion. Yeah, it's a Saudi backer. His name is uh, Turki Al-Akhsikh. This guy that Dana White and Nick Khan are working with to start this boxing promotion. So to me, TKO is thriving, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Saying they're broke, who knows, right? But Dave Meltzer, this is what he reports in his Wrestling Observer newsletter. But and that's pretty much it. SmackDown was decent. You had Cody Rhodes come out, cut a promo. You had LA Knight come out. You had Randy Orton. So they're doing another multi-man match coming up, setting it up for King of the Ring. LA Knight is setting himself up to be the 2025 King of the Ring, which is good for LA Knight. I'm glad he's still over. He's another guy that he kind of got himself over organically, and then WWE just dropped him because he wasn't one of Vince's guys. But Vince is no longer there. But again, Triple H, Paul Levesque, he has his own guys that he's pushing. You know what I mean? We saw the debut of Hakulea, who is another Islander, probably will be interjected into this bloodline storyline. Yet another Islander in WWE. So we have to see where this R Truth storyline goes. Hopefully it goes places, guys. Thank you, Nick. I will definitely be subscribing to you. Matt, thank you for contributing. Thank you, Lisa, for contributing. Love you guys. And it's all for WWE News right now. Peace.